Time now for the press review, and for that I'm joined here in the studio by none other than Alison Sargent. Hello, Alison.
Hi, Annette.
And you've been looking at some of today's headlines, and you're starting with an article which has been signed by some 24 heads of states. They're calling, which is very interesting, for a pandemic treaty similar to the global accord forged after World War II.
Yeah, this article is published in papers around the world today, including the Daily Telegraph in the UK. The long list of signatories includes European leaders, but also heads of states from countries around the world, including South Korea, South Africa, Kenya, and Chile. It's also signed by the leader of the World Health Organization. They're all calling for what they call a pandemic preparedness treaty that would enhance international cooperation to improve alert systems, data sharing, and production and distribution of vaccines, medicines, and personal protective equipment. Now, for German paper, the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, which has also published this article, they say this call from world leaders is a reminder that COVID-19, unfortunately, will not be the last pandemic, and the idea here is to be better prepared for the next one. It's also worth noting, Annette, that there are some key names missing from this list of signatories, like the leaders of the US, Russia, China, India, and Brazil, so some pretty key players. Maybe they'll read this today and get inspired.
Indeed. Now, we're going to talk next about one of the leaders who did actually sign that article, and that is none other than French President Emmanuel Macron, who himself is facing mounting pressure to toughen the country's coronavirus restrictions.
Yes. What is he waiting for? That's the question that French paper Libération is asking on their front page today. The paper writes that by stubbornly trying to prove himself right for decisions like keeping schools open, Emmanuel Macron is ending up, quote, like a child strangled by the knot he's been trying to untie. Now, Le Monde has one explanation for Macron's stubbornness. He thinks he knows better than the scientists. In Le Monde's headline, the paper refers to him as the president epidemiologist. Now, that may sound ridiculous, but it's actually not a complete joke. Le Monde is actually citing people close to the French president who say he went to great lengths to educate himself about the coronavirus, and he ultimately, quote, liberated himself from the experts. The problem, though, as Le Monde points out, is that the situation is not improving, and Macron is now facing a lot of criticism.
Okay, now shifting gears, and we've been following the trial, obviously, through our news coverage in the States over the killing of George Floyd, but there's a similar case in Mexico that's drawing comparisons and also outrage.
That's right. In this case, it was a young Salvadoran woman who was killed while being arrested by police. As you see in this paper, El Salvador, the images are strikingly similar to those we saw with George Floyd. This woman's name was Victoria Salazar Ariatza. She was a 36-year-old mother of two. She died of broken vertebra after police pinned her down in Tulum, Mexico. Her mother actually made the comparison herself to George Floyd. She told the paper El Salvador, "My daughter's case is much like that, is the same as that of George Floyd." The paper also notes that the Salvadoran president has called for justice, and he has called Victoria Salazar a victim of misogyny. Now, as we read in Mexican paper La Jornada, her death has sparked protests that are being led by feminist groups. Her death seems to be leading to a larger conversation in Mexico about misogyny, about treatment of immigrants, and also about police violence. One editorialist for El Universal writes that cases of police violence are really not rare in Mexico. He says they are the inevitable result of an explosive cocktail of insufficient training and systemic impunity.
Now, change of pace here, and media outlets across the world have been marking the end of the saga of the Ever Given. Ever giving us stories, that's for sure, which was finally freed after blocking the Suez Canal for nearly a week.
That's right. It was really the ship that launched 1,000 memes, and people are very sad to see it go. Really following the ship's saga sort of became part of daily life for the past week. That's basically what we see illustrated in this cartoon for the pan-Arab paper Ashaq al-Assad. The cargo ship there lodged into our daily news programs. Now, as we read in the New York Times, many viewers are very sad to see it go. As crews worked to free the ship, the hashtag #PutItBack was actually trending on social media. The New York Times writes that thousands identified with the ship's determination to stay lodged across the vital waterway. And the paper also notes that an entire website actually sprang up that was devoted to following the saga. It was called www.istheshipstillstuck.com. On Monday, the website updated to read, "No, what a relief," although, of course, it's not a relief for everyone. People are very sad about this ship's passing.
Indeed. Okay, now to cheer ourselves up, We're going on another rather quirky news story. It's about a mafia fugitive who was caught by police in rather unusual
circumstances. This mafia fugitive had been successfully on the run since 2014. He had set himself up in the Caribbean, but then he was caught thanks to Italian cooking videos that he posted on YouTube. The Guardian explains that he was very careful not to show his face in these videos, but his distinctive tattoos gave him away. Annette, I would say there are two morals to this story. Number one, try not to get distinctive tattoos if you plan to go on the run. And number two, if you have them, don't post videos on YouTube.
Obviously not the sharpest tool in the box. Thanks for that, Alison.